Hey, gang.
Hello.
Hi. Hi.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Kristen Baldwin from Yahoo TV, and I'm here with the cast of Good Girls Revolt. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, and then we'll go.
Thanks for coming out, guys.
Yeah, actors.
So nice. This is
look
lovely.
great. Yeah.
I'm Chris Diamantopoulos. I play Finn.
Genevieve Angelson, I play Patti.
Anna Camp and I'm Jane. Erin Darke and I play Cindy.
Hunter Parrish, I play Doug. It's so cool. We've been doing press all day, and now it feels like we're like with family.
Yeah.
It's true. It's a great way to end the night for us.
So the show takes place in 1969, obviously a moment of big change in America. And so as actors, when you're preparing for a role that takes place maybe before you were born, how do you, in the case of everyone here, how do you prepare?
A great doctor.
How do you research, and what's the first thing you do?
You are an 83-year-old Jewish man.
It's absolutely true.
You are.
Mel Brooks, I just transform. I can transform.
You want to just? Shall we go down? Yeah. I think it starts and ends with the script, and Dana Calvo, who wrote the script, just set the stage for a real opportunity for us to explore character. And you certainly saw a tiny little taste of it in the pilot, but the series actually allows these characters to become so fully formed and so three-dimensional. For me, I asked Dana who the character was based on, and he's actually based on a fellow named Osborne Elliott, who was the editor-at-large of Newsweek from 1966 to 1986, and he was the youngest editor-at-large ever. He was 36 when he took over the magazine, which was a really big deal for the shareholders of the time. So I tracked down an autobiography that he'd written, and then I tracked down some transcripts of a couple of speeches that he'd given at various colleges, just so I could get a sense of who he was, how he spoke, the cadence of his voice, and then I spoke with his predecessor, and I got all this information about where he shopped and his barber and where he liked to eat and all this stuff, and so that was a nice jumping-off point for me.
Chris should not have gone first. He did way more prep than any of the
I
rest
know,
of
I know.
us.
I am just the opposite kind of actor. Whenever I was in a class, which is just to say, whatever works. Like, there's not a right way to do it. And whenever I was in an acting class, and it would be like, so what's your backstory? And where did you go to high school? And did you have pets? And what did your mother's bedroom smell like? I was just like, fucked. Like, I could not. I was like, am I acting right now like my mother's bedroom smells like lilac? Like, I couldn't. It didn't wake me up. It didn't bring me to life. So for me, it's really just about, I watched as many movies as possible from that time period. I looked at how women held their bodies. I looked at, I really just wanted to see images of how do I stand when I'm not bent over an iPhone all the time? What is my sense of humor if it doesn't feel like Aubrey Plaza or Kristen Wiig? What does it really mean to be without the kind of cynicism and irony that we have in 2016? And then I just listened and responded. And I've never been on a show with actors where that has been so friggin' easy.
I'm very fortunate enough to have a friend who has this awesome thing called a time machine. And she let me borrow it for like a week, and it was really awesome. No, I wish that was true. I read the book, obviously. And I've been very lucky enough to be in a couple period pieces that are set in the 60s. I'm very drawn to that time period, the music. I spoke with my mother, my grandmother. It's just, you can get really fantastic stories from people that are really close to you. So that's mainly what I did, but I wish I had had a time machine.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm also I consider myself a more instinctual actor than a preparation actor. For me, it's more about making sure you understand the text before going in and understand the world before going in. And I think, the 60s were this time period that I felt like I knew so much about. But once I started to look into it, I realized that what I knew were these broad strokes of, oh yeah, there was lots of change and hippies. And so more than anything, I was just researching the specific events leading into this for these people. What were the things happening in the world that were shaping their ideas? And I found the CNN documentary series, the 60s and the 70s, to be incredible resources, as well as immensely entertaining. And I think, and I also read the book.
We were just saying how it sucks to be at the end of the line because everyone says everything that you could have said. But yeah, I think we all prepared in similar ways. We read the book. I too watched the Scene in 60s documentary, which came out I think the March before we filmed the pilot, and then the 70s one came out shortly after we filmed the pilot, so it was timed well for, by the time we actually
They
filmed
did it for us.
They did it for
They were
us.
like, oh, you need more material. Here
Yeah.
we go.
And yeah, I don't know. I think, show up and be present. And as Genevieve said, when you have great writing and
I didn't say that.
no, you didn't. But you did say the second part, which I'm
it
getting
implied?
to.
Got it.
Which
We'll
I'm getting
start on
to,
your end for the next
which
question.
is that you just it comes naturally when you get to work with other great actors too, which you guys all know.
All right, Hunter, next time we'll start with you, just so you're...
No, please don't. Actually,
Genevieve, Patti seems to be quite forward-thinking, and certainly more so than the other women in the office, at least initially. Where do you think that comes from? I know, you might not know what her mother's bedroom smells like, but where is that coming from, do you think, in terms of her, she really has a lot of confidence and a lot of strength.
Can I speak, just because I know I'm talking to a room, or I assume I'm talking to a room full of actors, is that true? Okay. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter where it comes from. For me, it's about how do I make sure it's there informing the choices that I make on the day? How do I make sure that the choices, the actions I'm playing, the things I believe, how do I make sure that those things are in line with the story that I have to tell? Where it comes from doesn't matter. Like, it really doesn't. It's like, could I explain, yes, I'm from New York City, Anna's from South Carolina, Erin's from Flint. Does that inform, our behavior? I'm sure it does, but what you see is our behavior, not Erin wearing a sign that says I'm from Flint.
No, but I can't say no to a free sandwich. I can't.
And I can't be nice to people, so I'm kidding.
So it's really just, it's a feeling, it sounds like.
No, I mean, I think it's about studying. It's about, first of all, knowing who the person is really knowing who the person is on paper, honoring who's been written. So presumably you wouldn't get the part if your instincts about it weren't correct. And I'm not saying that I don't have thoughts about that, but what I give myself is just kind of a sense of what I get to enjoy when I'm Patti is just permission. Just it's not fun for anyone else to watch me if I'm not having an absolutely great time. So how do I have a great time? And that's with breaking the rules a little bit and flirting with people that I shouldn't be flirting with, and enjoying the kind of wildness and breach of boundaries that she enjoys. Why she's like that as opposed to why Anna's like that, it doesn't really matter. Sorry,
Why I'm what, huh?
I mean Jane. I mean
saying?
Jane.
It's pronounced Anna.
Yeah, it's so fancy.
On a comp.
So obviously, sexism in the workplace is not, something that's gone away. It is obviously still a very relevant issue, whether it's equal pay, whether it's sexual harassment, whether it's Donald Trump groping you, and so I guess my question is for all
Does
of
that
you.
happen to you?
I mean,
You can talk about
not Donald
it.
Trump, but anyway, how has your perspective on these issues changed, from working on this show, from seeing, sort of the evolution of this fight? Erin,
Can I go? It's it's made me fiery. I think Hunter's listened to me talk all day, so I think he can back that up. No, but I think it has made. I came out of working on this show with both such an incredible and deep appreciation for all of the women who fought before us to get where we are today, but I also came out with this just deep understanding and passion about the fact that this fight is not done, that we can't get complacent, we can't rest on that appreciation, we have to keep pushing forward until we're actually equal, and you can go to work and not fear speaking back to a boss because it might come back at you, or fear your presidential candidate, trying to normalize sexual assault. Until these things are gone, the fight is not done. Thanks.
I read this great quote that's probably not relevant at all, but I don't know. For some reason, it resonated with me. And it said, let us not look back with anger, nor forward with fear, but around us with awareness. And I thought that was so appropriate for what we're dealing with in the show and in our present situation. The notion that these women were brave enough to risk their careers and their social standing and their families to do the right thing. And nearly 50 years later, we're better than they were, but we're not there. And it's gratifying to think that we're a part of a show that can entertain and that can tell stories and that can, give us an opportunity to play these characters. But it's also gratifying to recognize that young people, young women and men can watch the show and recognize that now's the time to take action. We can't sit back just because they've done all the hard work and we've gotten to this point. We have to.
And change can come from change comes from regular people. Like that's what was so great about this show to me was that these women weren't like born feminists. They weren't born fighters. They didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to change the world. They were just women and they wanted to write and it wasn't fair. And so they did what they could. Like the change and the fight can be in small ways just from people.
So
Very
Hunter,
fiery.
we like it. Hunter Douglas clearly wants to be a nice guy, but he's also, a little harsh with Patti at times. For a modern and enlightened young man such as yourself, how do you
Why, thank you.
how do you connect with a character whose morals and values, sort of are by today's standards, quite offensive?
An actor prepares.
No, I think that's one of the things we talk a lot about is like, and I sat down with Dana before too, and we talked about how do you walk that line of like representing that these are, as we've said many times, men of their time, but make them likable. And I honestly wasn't, as we were doing it, I don't know that I was convinced that he was likable. I don't. I know that I was making each choice with the scenes I was given as honest as I could and as reactive as I thought he would be, as appropriate to what I saw Patti doing. And that's all I could do. And it's really not my job to make him be anything but that. It's someone else's job, and it was Dana's job, and the rest of that creative team, and that's really to their testament of what they've done. I haven't seen them all. You guys just saw this one. A few of our cast members have seen sort of the 10 episode arc, and have said, and some of the press people we say, have said that it's successful. That somehow you don't walk away going, it's clear that the men are the opposition and the women are, just always against them. And I think in order to tell the story correctly and to do the women justice in that sense, you have to create that. So I don't know. I didn't go into it thinking he's such a small-minded person. I just went into it reacting as sort of honest as I thought he could,
Can I join it? I did a lot of scenes with Hunter, and this was a conversation that we would often have because it just wasn't the television show that we wanted to make, where it was just girls are good and boys are bad and don't do that. Nobody wants to watch that. People are smart and people want to see stuff that's messy and gray and complicated and surprising. And so, on the one hand, you could say, yes, of course, there's the line where he says, but you're not a reporter, you're a researcher, and that doesn't necessarily sit well with people. But I am also a girl who stood him up twice. Like, I bailed on our plans, and it's not like I texted him. Do you know what I mean? And so
there was another draft of this pilot. It's the one that was released when we got picked up, and it was awesome, and it was cool. But one of the things I did feel that was hard for me about that is that line stuck out to people and classified him as a character and okay, cool. So he's the douchebag. Somebody said in the TCA thing we did. So the guys are dicks, and both Chris and I were like, I don't think so. And it was so hard for me to hear that that's the black and white thing that somebody received, oh, the guys are dicks. And what I do think is better about how this has been painted, and maybe I'm just completely this is just my selfishness here, in this reworked one, is I don't think it lands as much that way. I think you do actually have a small amount of understanding that she stood him up twice. She's not flawless either. You know, he's a dick for not realizing that she can be a reporter if she wants, but we just haven't gotten there yet. You know, like, I think there's more story there, and that sentence taken alone makes it seem black and white to me.
You can't fast track evolution. That's what it is. And the guys in 1969, they were guys in 1969. So even the most enlightened of the men in 1969 was still in 1969. They had nothing. There was no analogous counterpart to them. There was no precedent. So they were doing the best they could. Some of them were misogynists. Some of them were chauvinists, just like we have today. But I think that measuring the men by the standard of the era isn't necessarily. It's measuring them by whatever their ethical merits were. And I feel like Doug had merit and was essentially trying to do the right thing. He was just he was a victim of circumstance.
There was no term. There was no. Oh, sorry. Yeah, what did you say?
He was a victim of circumstance.
Want to make a plug for anything?
We didn't have the term sexual harassment back then. There was not sexual discrimination. So these women had to define it so they could fight against it. So it's not that we could forgive these men, but they had no way. We all had no idea. There wasn't any other way of living. But in 2016, I'm sorry, there is no excuse.
Yeah, because we can have an open forum about it. That's what's great about now. We can actually talk about it and not be in the shadows. They had to literally go meet in these clandestine places to talk about what it was.
The bathroom.
Yeah, the bathroom.
I have to say though, and I know this is not a discussion on sexual harassment tonight. That's but there are also still parts of our country that subculture does exist, and they don't realize that they're in a bubble in a sense. Like they don't, even though we can sit up here and talk about it, and we're in New York City or LA, and we can have very evolved conversations. I think there are parts of the country where young men and young women do settle for that lowest common denominator.
I wonder, do they get Prime? Did they sign up for
We need to make sure they have Prime.
You need free shipping as well.
Yeah,
right.
It's true. Holidays.
In the middle of Nebraska.
You really need free shipping in the middle of Nebraska. I have been there, and there is no place to get things.
Evolution, and look, TV was created to sell soap, and now we've evolved to just selling the subscription to get soap faster.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat.
2-day shipping.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
So continuing this, though, on the flip side, Erin, how did you, a fiery young woman like yourself, connect with Cindy and her initial worldview that it seemed, she felt that her husband was doing her a favor by letting her have a job? How do you find that connection?
I mean, that's the thing. I think Cindy came like weirdly naturally to me. I just understood who she was really immediately, and it took me, like, I sat there and like tried to think about why for a little while, because she is, as you may be able to tell, slightly different from me. But I realized that she is so much a product of how she's been raised and what she's been told her entire life. And I sort of realized that Cindy is a person that I can imagine myself having become if no one had ever told me that I could pursue my dreams, if no one had ever told me that I deserved my own happiness and that I could have a job and have a passion, and that those things were not even just okay, but things that I should have and I should work for. Like, I don't think anyone has ever told this girl that you have the right to be happy. And, I think putting myself in that place and realizing how lucky I was to grow up in this time and with the, parents and people around me that I had, I realized that, you can see, I look back to, when I was a 10-year-old girl and you're just learning those things about yourself. And I feel like in some ways Cindy is still that 10-year-old girl who just hasn't had a chance to learn those things about herself. And there's just this fire. There's a feisty girl in there trying to fight her way out. It's just gonna take a while.
The wardrobe and the styling is so impeccable and just beautiful. I would love to hear from you guys to talk about, as actors, how does that help you get into character?
Designers, what did you think of your wardrobe?
Well, I hated the girdle. The girdle was something I wanted to burn.
So, yeah, discuss the girdle. I need to know, they're putting you in period underwear.
I literally get back to my trailer after shooting and my hair is out to here. I mean, we saw it today, and on the big screen, I'm sure it's huge. And those,
it's basically its own character.
Yeah, basically. But I want to rip everything everything off as fast as possible. But it really does inform absolutely who Jane is. You know who she is right when you walk in, right when she comes on. And I think they have a great plan for Jane, you know, when she starts to open up and she starts to communicate with the other women, and some things happen to rock her world, which are the best things that could happen to her later on in the season. And the wardrobe and the hair and the makeup all start to reflect that.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for you guys to all see what happens to her.
Yeah, our costume designers, Laura Jean Shannon, and then Carrie Grace, who started as her assistant but ended up taking over at the end of the season because Laura Jean moved on to Jumanji. But they did such a beautiful job of allowing the costumes to evolve with the characters. And I mean, I found it so helpful. Like, you know, I would get there, you know, there's some mornings you get there and you're like, oh, can I do this today? And then you put on a sweater vest and a butterfly pin and a plaid skirt and you're like, yeah, you know, I'm feeling like Cindy right now. But I thought they just did such an amazing job of having such a unique sense of style and character for each person, and really working and collaborating with us to make sure that it was all stuff that made us feel like we were in that person's skin.
They were instrumental too in creating so much of the atmosphere of the show that makes it, I think, a very unique view of that era. You know, people have been talking about how this sort of picks up where Mad Men left off, and you know, I guess from the standpoint of time frame and era-wise, it does, but it's painted in such a different way, and it's so much more vibrant and plucky and energetic and just optimistic. Exactly, it's more hopeful, and I think that the wardrobe reflects that accurately.
I just think it's amazing that, like, these are 5 extremely different characters, and there isn't a weak link. And I really just, in terms of the costumes, and I really just like that speaks so much to Laura Jean's artistry, that every character, it would be like, damn, that's so good, and it's so different from what I'm wearing, and what I'm wearing is so good. And I'm just a huge fan of hers.
I feel like Patti has some of the best clothes that you could, you know, transition.
You're not wrong.
Transition to today. Did any of them accidentally make it into your bag on the way?
No, it was on purpose. I really tried not to do anything like thieving or cheating, but when I asked, they would always say no. So then it made me want to stop asking. I did. I asked every time. It was actually hard for me because I am myself such a clothes horse and such a style person that, like, when I would meet, and that's not to say that I have great style, it's just that my style and Patty's style are so connected. And so when I would meet these outfits, it would be romantic, and then it would be like the end of every episode was a breakup, and and then like a new outfit would come along, and I'd be like, I'm over it. It's fine, because now I'm hanging out with this little number. They gave me a green circular ovular ring that I wear on every episode of the show that I love very much, and I feel like her soul is really inside it. And I have to say, I feel genuinely like, not guilty, but just I have so much compassion for these 2 women, because I happen to be playing someone who is just on the other side of the cusp of this breakthrough. And so these women are in hair and makeup for 2.5 hours before we're on set rehearsing, and I literally blow in, like, I like, you know, don't run a comb through my hair, throw on a thing of mascara. I'm like not even wearing a bra. It really was not fair what they had to go through. It really wasn't.
No, you're right.
Confirmed.
It wasn't fair.
They worked really hard, really, really hard.
I'm always fascinated with these period shows when people are smoking nonstop, and I just wonder, like, what are these cigarettes that you guys are smoking?
They're clove cigarettes.
They're X-Lax.
And they're
apparently it gave
they're
everyone
not a
diarrhea.
good thing.
Not me.
Not
I never
me.
got
I also,
diarrhea.
Not
would
everyone.
like to state.
But,
And
you
I
know what?
wouldn't tell you
They
if
gave
I
everybody a respiratory ailment. I do have to say, because
I have migraines.
no, literally, and we all had, like, we were coughing up stuff. So the clove cigarettes, and then they were also running smoke
called our
machines,
SAG
Roscoe fog machines.
I think we did.
And they were, I mean, when I say that set was smoky, you could cut through it with a knife.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
I'm a smoker. And I would walk on that set and be like, Jesus, I can't deal with this. I need to go outside and have a cigarette. Like,
I had no problem with it, which made me think that I was dying. I was like,
Exactly. So you all have, you know, quite a bit of TV experience across all the, you know, broadcast, cable. How would those experiences compare with working on, you know, a streaming platform like Amazon?
it just feels like it sort of hasn't happened yet, because the process of making a television show is you go in and you make the episodes of the television show. The distribution really hasn't happened yet because it's all about to land. But what I imagine is it's more like the experience of releasing a movie because it all comes out at once. But I mean, I think for me, the distinction about making this television show on cable as opposed to network was really about the quality of the show. Like,
yeah, it really did. I mean, you know, having worked on cable and on network, it was similar to both. I feel like, I mean, from my standpoint, it really felt like Amazon is keen to be a big player in the space, and so I feel like they pride themselves on, and should, for hiring the right people to do the right job.
I feel like there's less fear
Yes.
on set when you
we're
do
all
it.
selling stuff.
Yeah.
Like, they're selling stuff on Fox and they're selling stuff on Amazon. So why does one feel so much more
Network television, every time I go in to shoot a pilot for a network show, there's so much fear of taking risks and making choices, and they always come and watch and huddle, and the actors feel like they're
it's
afraid
also
to
like,
move, you know?
I used to work in casting. I worked as a casting associate for 2.5 years, and we worked on quite a few network shows. And they're also there. You have like that fear doesn't stop either, because when you're making a network show, then at some point it premieres, and you're still making it, and then everyone's looking at the ratings every week, and they're doing focus groups. So you're making the show and suddenly getting calls being like, well, the focus group doesn't like it when she's, you know, smoking. So can you take that out of the scene? And also
why
they don't like
shows
it when she.
they change so much over the course of
and
season to
it's
season,
because like I think networks get really panicked. Whereas when you're filming all 10 episodes at once, they're going to be released at once. You know, nobody's listening to any outside opinions while you're making it except the people who are involved, and you get to sort of just be in the creative bubble of making it.
Is it also worth adding that I feel like in networks, you know, CBS comes to mind for, like, there's a specific demographic that watches CBS shows, you know, whether it's the CBS drama demographic or the CBS comedy demographic. And I don't know, Amazon is new. They don't have like a particular fan base that they're trying to keep and uphold and you know, have a new line of shows come out that all meet that requirement for that demographic. They're going, we don't have a demographic. We're going to spit out a bunch of crap, and we know, you know, this is cool, this is good. We're trying to build this type of specific audience, and I think our show I think getting to do projects under people with that mentality is much more fun, because you're not put in a box.
Absolutely. Now, I did get a couple questions from Twitter, and one that intrigued me was, who on the cast is most like their character?
Genevieve?
I think.
Definitely.
I don't wear bras.
Good to know. And all right, and I'll just take it on the other side. Who is the least?
Erin, for me.
Erin.
Excellent.
She wears bra. No, I'm just
But also,
I do wear
Sorry,
bras.
sorry. No,
we
I
are
see,
like in
yeah,
that
no.
way.
You don't
69,
wear
sorry.
those bras.
Not pointy
No,
bras,
no,
though.
not
pointy.
pointy bras.
I also think it's kind of amazing. First of all, they're all so good, and so many people who aren't here are so good. Teddy Bergman, Michael Oberholzer, Danya LaBelle, like, these people are
Daniel Eric Gold.
like, these people are
good.
incredible
Kelso.
actors. But I just have to say, like, for Chris, this is Mickey Mouse. Like, he is Mickey Mouse. I'm not even kidding. He's the voice of Mickey Mouse and a stooge, and he plays this like buttoned up, dapper head of it. It's so exciting to see someone be able to do so much. You know?
Hot dog, thanks. Oh boy!
I really wish I had asked you to do the entire panel in that voice. That would have been amazing.
Get salt.
Well, you saw his Tim Gunn come out earlier. I mean, ladies
Tim
and
Gunn is
gentlemen.
great.
I'm frankly flabbergasted by this. And I'm going to have to ask you to clean up the workroom.
That's incredible.
Well, thank you. I'm blushing.
I can't believe we didn't have more Tim Gunn on set. Like, where was this for
I just figured
4
out,
months?
you know what that is? That's learning how to do an impression by osmosis. I never tried to do Tim Gunn. It's just my wife is so obsessed with that bloody show that we've watched it for 15 seasons or whatever the hell it is. That one day I just realized, oh shit, I know everything about Tim Gunn.
The way he stands.
He's the anthropomorphized version of C-3PO.
The one I like. The line I
Which one? Which one?
This troubles me. When you woke up this morning, were you thinking chevron and stripes made sense?
This is why you like having me around, because I just laugh at your joke.
Wind it up, and go.
Pass it, yeah.
As much as I would honestly listen to you do that for the next hour, Our time is up. Thank you so much to
Thank
the
you
cast
for
of
coming.
Good Girls
Thank you so
Revolt.
much.
And
Thanks,
thank
guys.
you for coming.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
It was a real
Thank
treat for
you.
us.
Thanks for coming.